Thanks, Sabina. That was fantastic. Now, I'd like to introduce Vince Menzione, CEO and founder of Ultimate Partnerships, here to discuss 7 operating principles for successful partnerships.
Thank you so much. And I am feel so privileged and honored to be here with you today. This is such an amazing event. And hopefully you're learning as much as I am through these sessions today. Some really great conversations with some amazing business leaders. You've heard from Jay McBain and Martine Casado. There's some conversations that some of you have already heard about some of the amazing growth. John talked to us earlier about the amazing growth we're seeing to 1 million software companies, how software is eating the world. And we've all been living through this time like no other. We've seen technology become the force multiplier as our world has evolved and changed during these last 2 years, where we've seen several years of transformation in several months, and it continues at that rate. And marketplaces and ecosystems are driving what we're seeing in the B2B world moving forward. The role of partnering, creating, and executing ecosystems and aligning for success with CSPs will continue to be critical. Partnerships are a force multiplier to business success, improving the pace of technology adoption, routes to market, influence, reach, and scale. And the fundamentals of partnership, even though we're evolving, our world is changing, we're moving to online and marketplaces, the role of partnerships, the human elements, are still so critical to the successful execution of our business strategies. And so today we're going to talk more about those principles that underlying what makes success and why organizations often fail partnering. I'm Vince Menzione, and I've described my career as several business transformations, where I led a startup, I did a turnaround to tremendous success. I did a decade at Microsoft where I led partner strategy for a $4.6 billion business within Microsoft. And then when I left, I started a podcast focused in on partnering and the successful execution of partnerships. I've seen where partnerships are successful, and I've also seen where they failed. And I am privileged to have so many amazing business leaders come to this forum, leaders from all walks of life, to discuss partnering, to discuss just causes around lifting all voices and helping all of us become more successful as business leaders and achieving our greatest results. So today I'd like to spend some time with you on some of these aspects of what makes successful partnering and when partnerships fail, why they often fail. I have, in every conversation I have with these amazing leaders from all walks of life, we discuss what makes successful partnerships as well as what I often refer to as the kryptonite. And I want to ask those of you who are here with us today, it's hard to see because I can't see everyone, but maybe in the chat, can you tell me why you believe when partnerships don't work out well? What is the reason why? Is there an underlying reason or cause for that? And I'd love to see, I'm going to stop here and pause and ask you to fill that in the chat if you can. I'm sure many of you are still thinking. So I'm going to help this process along by sharing with you some of the factors, what I refer to as the dysfunctions of partnerships. Why do organizations often fail? What is that kryptonite? Why, when we as software companies locking arms or trying to lock arms, why do the partnerships often fail? And I've been inside of ISVs. I've been on the other side, working at Microsoft and in other tech companies. And I've boiled it down to what I consider to be these 4 dysfunctions of partnerships, why they often fail. And I believe it often begins with what I refer to as a scarcity or finite mindset. Partnerships that aren't aligned for the right reasons, they're transactional. There's internal resistance to maybe even partnering or building out ecosystems. And many organizations, especially SaaS software companies, have conflicting goals. They have a direct sales organization where they worship the heroic sales culture, ringing the bell. And maybe there's some sacred cows within the organization that need to be addressed, but aren't addressed up until this point. There's often many times the accepting the status quo in the business model is the norm. The second area, the second dysfunction, has to do with commitment. Commitment up and down the organization, from the board, on the executive team, up and down the organization. Organizations that don't align, make the required investments, and embrace partnering and the partnering model often fail with partnerships. The third area is around not being deliberate enough. We're hearing today about engaging with the cloud solution providers, the Microsoft, Amazon, and Googles of the world. Many organizations aren't deliberate enough in their models. They don't work hard enough. They're not aggressive enough or deliberate enough in advancing their models, both with their cloud software providers as well as their own ecosystems. And recognizing that this is across several functions of the business, from the sales or CRO level to the marketing or CMO level to the executive team, the CFO, and the like. They're not deliberate enough in executing a strong enough strategy. And the fourth area I find often is around trust. Organizations that don't trust each other. There's no trust on the other side. They're not willing to share opportunities. I see this today where organizations still have a mindset around trust. And trust is the oxygen in the room. Without trust, there is no partnership. So as I said earlier, I have identified a set of principles through all the work I've done over the years in these organizations, building successful transformations, building successful partner strategies, aligning organizations for success. I've landed on a set of operating principles, maybe even habits of what makes a highly effective partnership. And you'll see in the diagram here, there are some internal elements as well as external or partner-facing elements that make partnerships successful. And we're going to cover them here in a second. The first area is around mindset, whether you call it a growth mindset, whether you call it an infinite mindset, whether you call it a forward-leaning mindset. Mindset is critical. Having a partner mindset is critical to the success of the execution of a partner strategy across an organization, and then outward to building out your own ecosystems, to working with CSPs, and building out your own channels to success. This is Satya Nadella. Satya, as many of you know, is the CEO of Microsoft. He's been CEO for 8 years now. And I had the privilege of working in the Steve Ballmer days and working in the Satya Nadella days. And the most striking things that Satya did when he entered as CEO of the organization, 3 things. First, we each received a copy of the book Mindset by Carol Dweck, an excellent read on the distinctions between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. Second, he brought in an amazing high-performance coach, Dr. Michael Gervais, who's been a guest 3 times now on Ultimate Guide to Partnering, my podcast. And Michael entered the room with his executive team. And Satya asked him that he wanted to break down the barriers that were inhibiting these alpha leaders from collaborating with each other. You see, these organizations were high alpha organizations. There was a lot of competition between organizations for resources, for recognition, for funding. And he wanted to break down the barriers. And in fact, in Satya's book, Hit Refresh, he references the work that Michael did on page 5 of that book, if you're interested in that book. And the third thing that Satya did was he changed the compensation models. You see, Microsoft, organizations competed against each other. Individuals competed with one another in terms of a stacking ranking at the time. And he changed the compensation models to take away that and make collaboration part of the culture. And you've seen it in how Microsoft has grown. Microsoft stock, when Satya took on, was $36.35. And today it's trading at $263, down from about $340 a share just at the end of the calendar year. So we've seen upwards of 10x growth in a company based on a culture of mindset. And I believe that embracing mindset across any of your organizations is a way to drive and fuel the growth of your business strategy today. The second area of focus, the second principle of what makes successful partnerships, after you have an infinite or growth mindset, is applying extreme commitment at the organizational level. I find that organizations that struggle don't have this level of executive or extreme commitment to the organization. This gentleman is a great example. He's been a guest on my podcast many times. His name is Tony Savoyan. He is the CEO of SADA Systems. And SADA Systems went from being an obscure, small MSP partner just about a dozen years ago to being Google's top partner, resale partner, and partner of the year status for 3 years running. He's grown his business to over $1 billion a year. And Tony exudes commitment better than any CEO I know. He's become the chief ecosystem officer or orchestrator across his organization, leveraging the relationship with SADA and Google in a big way, but embracing ISVs and bringing ISVs into the fold and making a culture where his salespeople not only are selling Google solutions, but they're helping enable and scale ISVs through their ecosystem of customers. And they are a strong, trusted partner within the Google ecosystem. So extreme commitment, having the CEO, the CFO, the CRO, every CX in the organization needs to be on board. And up and down the organization, everyone needs to be saying the same things about the success of the partnership. The third area is around vision and values, right? So, those of you who know Jim Collins and some of the work that he's done, the just cause, what is our just cause? Before we lock arms with another organization, we need to articulate what we hope to achieve. What is the why behind why we're even doing this, right? Why don't we just hire another 100 salespeople and put them out there and not have a partner strategy? But having a clear mission and aligning values and determining what our better together story will be with our top partners, with our CSPs, within our ecosystem is critical to success. And articulating that purpose and then continually communicating it across the organization leads to better decisions about people, strategies, processes, finances, and customers. So the sooner you do this up front, internally to your organization, aligning mindset, commitment, and vision, the better you will achieve success when you go cross over to driving the execution of the partner strategy. So once we have those things aligned, we now know what our vision is, we know what our mindset is, and we have commitment to driving it. We now have to apply what I refer to as maniacal focus to its execution. You see, where I've seen partnerships really fail, and I've sat in on so many partner review meetings and QBRs, quarterly business reviews with partners. We all sit in the room. We show a lot of slides to one another. We decide all these great things that we want to go do together, and then nothing happens. We walk away from the meeting 3-6 months later, there's been no execution or limited execution. The partners that have gotten it right, the organizations that have the most success partnering, are the ones that apply this maniacal focus. They are crisp and clear, not only on their vision, they're crisp and clear on what areas they're going to drive success. And today I utilize a set of tools around OKRs, objective and key results. Many of you know John Doerr, who was Kleiner Perkins, who wrote a book about OKRs and helped Google to be very successful here. And what matters most has helped to promulgate OKRs in our technology ecosystem. This is Sharon Hildebrand, also an amazing guest from my podcast. Sharon leads Hitachi's efforts, and she utilizes OKRs and she utilizes a maniacal focus to her execution and her partner-to-partner strategy. And she's done such a great job that she's just been promoted within the Hitachi organization to look after the 800 Hitachi companies and help them all collaborate together more effectively to drive marketplace and market success. So just an example, another great example of how maniacal focus can help you be more successful in your business partnership strategy. The next area, and this one is often the area, especially those of us in tech, right? We don't make necessarily the right investments in this area, right? We do put money into marketing. We're putting more money in marketing than we ever did before. But I find the organizations struggle with their brand and story with their partners. I see this quite often actually with ISVs and SaaS software companies in building their relationships and executing their business plans with partners like Microsoft, Amazon, and Google, in that they don't have a crisp strategy for brand and story. This gentleman is Dux Raymond-Sy. He is the chief brand officer, been a guest on my podcast also multiple times, chief brand officer of a company called AvePoint. When I first met Dux about a dozen years ago, AvePoint was a very small ISV, and they were just fledgling and breaking into the ecosystem, working with Microsoft and just getting by at that time. Dux became the face of AvePoint. He went to the tech giant. He met with several leaders. He continued to build the brand of AvePoint, offering to speak at events, offering to do more than asked of him with this partnership. And he has done an amazing job. AvePoint is now a publicly traded company. They just released their Q1 results, which were amazing. And they also have built out their own partner ecosystem, and they're recognized. They've been investing heavy. So not only are they a top CSP, partner to a CSP like Microsoft, but they've also built their own ecosystem and leveraging all of the technologies and marketplaces and like to do that. So brand and story, so important to the successful execution of a partner strategy. The next area, once we've decided, we've taken our vision and we've aligned maniacal focus to the objective and key results we want to go drive, we are recognizing that our brand and story are super important to market, how we show up together, and how we work with our partners. The next area is obvious, right? We need to go deliver results together. Delivering results and building that as a flywheel to continuing the success, right? Success breeds success. So having successful wins, having successful engagements, having a successful go-to-market that leads to results, co-selling with our partners is tantamount to the success. It's the traction. It's where the rubber meets the road. This is Lonnie Phillips, an amazing business leader, also a guest on Ultimate Guide to Partnering. Lonnie is the vice president of channel sales at Microsoft for the United States. She leads over a $30 billion business within Microsoft and is responsible for Microsoft's success driving its co-sell strategy. Her organization, she's taken our organization and she has directly aligned it to the field sellers at Microsoft so that partners have an avenue or a pathway to get from where they're managed as a ISV or another type of partner directly to the field organization. And her team is directly paid on the sales team's performance. So again, maniacal focus driving into the successful outcomes. And co-sell can be your brand. Building your co-sell strategy is so important. I like to refer to this as being a shiny quarter in a bucket full of shiny quarters. As we go from 170,000 ISVs to 1 million ISVs in the next several years, it will be even more critical than ever to ensure you're building your brand and you're leveraging all it takes, all the resources at your disposal to drive that engagement and locking arms with the tech giants and also within your own ecosystem. So once we have delivered against that, right, we internally, we're aligned to our partner strategy. We have our mindset. We have our executive commitment. We've got our vision and value. And then we've taken that and we're executing against the maniacal focus. We're driving our brand and story and we're delivering results against it. Well, we live in a changing world, right? We saw what happened 2 years ago with COVID and how that impacted how organizations purchase technology and all the changes we're seeing. You know, Jay McBain, who spoke to you earlier, talks about the 5 seats at the table, that the technology purchasing decision is becoming more like a consumer decision, right? That I'm looking at those 5 seats in order to help influence. So this whole ecosystem approach, being agile and understanding how ecosystems and marketplaces are going to drive the future of B2B commerce, right? Our world is changing fast. And we need to make the necessary pivots and adaptations required. And so being agile in your business strategy, applying agility and understanding where the puck is going. The famous Wayne Gretzky quote, I call it business Darwinism, right? Recognizing intuitively where the partnership is heading and making the required investments in technology, in marketplaces, and in other areas will lead to outstanding results. And this is Jake Swenson, also been a guest. Jake Swenson has also been a guest on Ultimate Guide to Partnering. Spoke with many of you earlier today about marketplaces and Microsoft's investments in this area. They put a stake in the ground last year when they changed the rates, and they are continuing to invest considerably in marketplace strategy. So these 7 principles, I like to refer to them as the 7 habits of highly successful partnership, right? Getting our mindset right, executive commitment, putting vision and value first. Those are our internal victory. Like once we get that internally, we've got the organization aligned for success. We need to get everyone in the organization on the same page. So often partners and the alliance strategy and the ecosystem strategy are kind of lopped in or plugged in. It needs to be integrated across your organization internally. On the external side, you need to ensure that you've got direct maniacal focus between yourself and the partners, like you've locked arms, you're driving the execution of that. You've got your brand and story right to market, how you show up, you're better together, and then delivering the results in co-selling that is just so fundamental and critical to success. I am so privileged to have so many amazing leaders come to the podcast. I remark on the fact that I have several corporate vice presidents at organizations like Microsoft and Google and other tech organizations come to the format. I have so many amazing leaders, entrepreneurs, women in technology, people from diverse backgrounds come talk about how they've grown their brand, how they're leading during this time, and especially during the last 2 years. We've spent a lot of time here, on how to drive success in this time like no other. And so I want to leave you with some principles that came out of some of these discussions, right? What can we as leaders do to apply the principles I just shared with you to accelerating our success, right? So first off is elevating a shared purpose. I think it's fundamental that everyone in the organization understand and get behind the vision and purpose for driving the successful execution of the partner strategy. The second is demonstrating the commitment. I talked about Tony Savoyan earlier, but even up and down other organizations like Microsoft and the like, leading with transparency, having empathy during this time that like we've all lived through, and having intimacy with key constituents, internal and external constituents, just so critical to success. And charting a course, offering more value and certainty to both customers and partners are just key to success. This is what the great ones do better or differently. And so I want to leave you with a couple of closing thoughts here. As I said earlier, we've lived through a time like no other. COVID has touched so many. I think we just recorded the 1 millionth death from COVID in the last 2 years. And hopefully we've learned a lot. We've, taken the necessary precautions, and the virus is less severe than it was 2 years ago. But I've thought about this book quite often, actually, through this time, as we've all lived through this time like no other, is that Dr. Viktor Frankl's book, In Search of Meaning, Man's Search for Meaning, is just a critical, successful book. And it tells the story about the Nazi concentration survivors and why they survived, the ones who survived the Holocaust. And I don't equate the last 2 years to anything like what those people suffered through. Obviously, our time has been very different. But there was a quote from the book that I love to share with you and hope to leave with you here today. And this is, the one thing you can't take away from me is the way I choose to respond to what you do to me. The last of one's freedoms is to choose one's attitude in any given circumstance. And that quote has touched me probably more than any other. I think that we in the tech sector are living through an amazing time. we have been driving this transformation, this evolution, this revolution we've all been seeing in our lives. And we are privileged. We're so privileged to be in that spot and helping to drive that. And we have an opportunity to make our worlds a better place for each of us. And so I want to leave you with that, because I think it's just an amazing and striking quote. And as we go off on our journey, I hope that touches how you think about the impact we each can have as we as leaders in this tech sector have an opportunity, perhaps an obligation, to lead the path forward at this time. So I'm Vince Menzione, and I would hope that you would follow along with us. Ultimate Guide to Partnering is a top Apple podcast. I think we ranked in the top 50 this past week. And you can follow along on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, ultimateguidetopartnering.com or ultimate-partnerships.com. And so I want to thank you for your time today. I feel privileged and honored to have gotten to spend time with you.
Well, thank you so much, Vince. That was really powerful, and we appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much.
So that's it for the how-to stage. Thank you to everyone who attended today. I'd like to invite you all to join us at either the main stage for our closing keynote, The Future of Go-to-Market from the VC perspective and how it impacts your market cap, or our thought leadership stage for our closing panel, Fireside Chat, partnering with the cloud providers to accelerate your cloud marketplace strategy. Enjoy!